Good afternoon, colleagues, and thank you, Julie, for that nice introduction. As Julie mentioned, I work at Athabasca University. And I work with some great people, and I know you met some of them at this conference. Rory McGreal, Terry Anderson, George Siemens, Deborah Hoven. So we have a very, very good group of people to work with at Athabasca University. I think the organizers for the conference scheduled this conference in February for the Canadians. Three weeks ago, I was cleaning the snow in the front of my house, and the pile was higher than I am. I think I'm a little bit tall. I'm not that short. So I decided to take a picture to show you what it's like in winter in Alberta. So if you visit Athabasca, come during the summer, our summertime, which is your winter time. It was minus 34 that day. And I phoned my admin assistant in Athabasca for a meeting, and it was minus 43 in Athabasca. So you should feel very, very fortunate to live in this southern hemisphere. In my speech today, I will play the role as a professor, a researcher, and as a citizen of the world. Because I think distance education, mobile learning can make a big difference in the world. And this quote is one of the things that drives my research. I had a chance to visit UNISA to be a guest speaker. And there was the poster with Nelson Mandela. And I took a nice picture. So he has a wonderful quote: "Education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world." Another thing you should look at that slide is he's a graduate from UNISA, a distance education university. One of the most famous person in the world, well known, is a graduate of a distance education university. So we need to promote these, our graduates, so that we can tell the world, yes, it does work. People who need a second chance or who do not have access can actually study at the same time. And in our MDE program, we have graduates who are presidents of colleges in Canada, and they have senior positions. And I think we need to promote those success factors so that people can see distance education is working and it's making a difference. Also, when I was in South Africa, I visited one of the schools. And this is what the school looks like. And yes, the teacher has to do the laundry and do the cleaning, and there is no janitor. So I went inside that school and I saw there were no books, there were no learning materials, just desks and chairs, very small desks and chairs. So I asked the teacher, where are the learning materials? She says they have no learning materials, but she says we have cell phones. So what that's saying is we no longer have the digital divide, we have a different divide called a learning divide, education divide. And as educators, we need to make sure that we don't have that education divide. I will give you an overview of what's happening around the world in terms of mobile learning. I'm involved in quite a bit of initiative. So what's happening in mobile learning? Talk about why higher education should get involved in mobile learning. So examples of use of technology in society, education. Talk a bit about the campus-based education model and why maybe it's not working very well in the 21st century for the new generation of students. Talk a bit about the learner, look a bit at the future of mobile technology, and conclusion. There's an International Association for Mobile Learning, and there's a list of the executive members from 6 countries. And one of the goals of the International Association is to make sure that all students in the world have access to one device, one mobile device, so that they can get their information, access to learning material. So that's one of our hidden goals. So if you go to I Am Learn, you will be able to go to the website and you can see some of the activities we're involved with. And I'm surprised to see there is no Australian in the executive committee. We have an Australian as one of the founding directors, Carla Oliver from Melbourne. So those are the founding directors for the International Association for Mobile Learning. There are countries and regions that are starting to form Association for Mobile Learning. Latin America just formed the Latin American Mobile Learning Association. Malaysia is forming their own association, and the Arabian Gulf is looking at starting their own mobile learning association. So a lot of activities around the world in terms of mobile learning. We are setting standards for mobile learning. Shows the importance around the world for use of mobile technology in education. So I'm on an ISO committee to look and see what standards we should follow when we design mobile learning for the learners. So it's an ISO committee, and we have representatives from Canada, South Korea, and Germany. And hopefully those will become standards for the future for the entire world. There are 3 international journals dedicated to mobile learning. And many of the very popular journals publish articles on mobile learning. And Olaf mentioned in his presentation, these are some of the top journals in distance education in the world. So it's a growing field, lots of interest, lots of publication. And I hope to talk to Olaf. Maybe we can do some similar analysis for mobile learning articles in journals, so we can see who writes the most articles, etc. And this year, there are 5 mobile learning conferences around the world. And many other conferences have special streams on mobile learning. The ACM, Association for Computing Machinery, or the IEEE. The World Bank, one of their missions is to get rid of poverty and make sure everyone eats well. And they're actually looking at use of mobile technology to reach people in the remote locations in development countries. And the reason is because the individuals in these countries, they have mobiles, they have mobile devices. They don't have computers, they're actually bypassing the computer stage directly to mobile. So people says, what does mobile have to do with poverty? So if you can send just-in-time information to people in development countries on how to grow good crops, how to eat well, how to fish well, then you will actually increase their quality of lives. So just-in-time information, just-in-time training with the mobile. And the United Nations has its Millennium Development Goals, which they plan to achieve by 2015, which I think it's very, very difficult to do. So I did 2 presentations in the World Bank about 18 months ago. And I told them the only way to achieve these goals is to use mobile technology. Because the people have the technology, why not train the teachers using the technology, get the teachers to access library from where they're located so that they can actually teach the children, especially for goal number 2, achieve universal primary education. So I told them the only way to do that, and it seems as if they're listening, they're starting to use mobiles to get people in the different locations. And I was involved in a project to connect the indigenous peoples around the world. One of the issues with indigenous people is the old people are dying out, and the young people are not learning about the language and the culture of the indigenous people. So a famous producer from Hollywood, he called experts from around the world, says, how can we use mobile technology to digitize the languages, the culture, so we can preserve those for the future generation? So I was at the World Information Summit, and I was talking to the indigenous leaders on how to use mobiles so that they can talk to each other from different parts of the world. There's significant uses of mobile technology in the different sectors of society. The Economist magazine in 2007 talk about in-the-pocket banking, where you can do your banking from your mobile, anywhere, anytime. a library in everyone's pocket. Jill Needham from the Open University of the United Kingdom and I just published this book, A Library in Your Pocket. And it's a collection of papers from around the globe. And you could have a doctor in your pocket. So if you have a medical condition, or you can Google the topic and you get information. And there are some sites where you can actually go for information. So the question is, are we ready for education in the pocket? Other sectors are moving that way. Why not education? Important questions for us. So one of the questions, are faculty ready for mobile learning? There was a research study done by Kerbeil in 2007, and they asked students and faculty if they're ready for mobile learning. And interestingly, 94% of the students said that they are ready for mobile learning, and only 60% of the faculty said that they are ready. So there's a gap between student and faculty in terms of readiness for mobile. So the questions are educators ready for mobile learning? And there's a lot of predictions out there that mobile learning will fail. You can't use mobile technology in education. But there were many famous predictions in the past, and I listed two here. The telephone has too many shortcomings to be seriously considered as a means of communication. The device is inherently of no value to us. Were they wrong? And the cinema is a little more than a fad. It's canned drama. What audiences really want to see is flesh and blood on the stage. Everybody goes to movies these days. They go to the cinema, they socialize. So people are making predictions about mobile in education, and I think they'll be wrong, same as these other people in their predictions. And they're saying they're resistant to the use of mobile learning. A few years ago, educators were saying that no one is going to use the internet. And today we can't do without the internet. And some are saying it's not suitable for learning. And again, a few of other predictions. There was a prediction that we will only need 5 computers in the world. And why would anyone need a computer in the home? So I don't think we should listen to these negative saying about mobile technology. It's here, it's going to happen. I think we have to move on. So there is no turning back in terms of use of mobiles in education and society. So let me talk a bit about the campus-based education system. It's a very complex system. The campus is a very complex system. Did anyone ever get lost on a campus? So many buildings, can't find the buildings. But why is it so complex when learning should be learner-centered, and the learner is the one who's doing the learning? But you have many, many buildings, areas within a campus. So if you think of a typical campus-based higher education institution, some problems is high dropout rate, high absenteeism, vandalism, conflict between students, conflict between faculty and student. The infrastructure is old. You have to repair the buildings. You have to get new buildings. Weather conditions, campus security, staff and students are suing the university because of injury. Many, many issues on campus-based institution. And there are a few that I think I missed. So you have to build the infrastructure to solve all of these problems or to prevent these problems. So I got a picture of a physical campus, campus-based university, and that's what it looks like. Many, many buildings. Security building, physical plant, maintenance, etc. And I got a picture of a distance education building, and that's what it looks like. Just one building, no students to support, not too many buildings, etc. And by the way, that's a picture of Athabasca University. We just have one main building in Athabasca, but we have offices in Calgary and Edmonton. And I looked at the budget for two universities, a campus-based and a distance education university. And what I found is the campus-based university spent 34% of the budget on operating costs, whereas a distance education university spent only 15%. So for a $1 billion budget expenses campus-based university, they're actually spending $340 million in operations. Why not invest some of those money into developing open education courses, etc., and build the infrastructure for distance delivery, online delivery, mobile delivery? And if let's say if there are 15 or 20 universities, it could be billions of dollars that you can redirect to develop courses that all universities can use. I mean, why do all universities need their own course in calculus? Why not have one course in calculus that everyone uses? It's the same. So we have to look at efficiencies and make sure we deliver to the student to meet the student needs. And I arrive in Sydney on Monday, and one of my hobbies is to read the newspapers. And I picked up the Financial Review, and there was an education section on Monday. And interestingly, what I noticed is there was some data on dropout in Australia, and that chart shows the different disciplines. So the title says university students who are seriously considering dropping out. Business, 37.5%, IT, 36.9%, nursing, 34.8%. So that was in your education, your financial paper education section. But then further in the article, it says the researchers surveyed 150 students who dropped out from four Australian universities, and these were the top reasons why they dropped out. Teaching faculty, not good enough or doesn't meet the student needs. Course content, probably not interactive. They have life issues, and they have paid work commitments. And that's the reason why they drop out. So if you have online learning, distance education, mobile learning, you can reach those students wherever they are. In terms of mobile learning around the world, I'm just going to give you a snapshot. A lot of projects, research in Europe, the United Kingdom, Italy, etc. And this lists some of their projects: Handler, MobiLearn, Keros, Mobile Learning Organizer, etc. At Athabasca, we are doing development and research on mobile learning in terms of delivering our courses on mobile devices, so students can take the course on their regular computer or on the mobile device. So when they travel, they can take it on a mobile device. Language training, workplace learning, and we are just looking and doing some research on how older adults over 65 use the mobile for reading, and how can we improve the device and the reading materials. The first international conference was held in the United Kingdom not very long ago, 2002. In China, there's a Network Education College, which is an online college. They're starting to use mobile devices for delivery. And because it's online flexible access, the enrollment went up from 200 to 17,000 in 7 years. So there's a need for the mobile delivery, online delivery. Country of Nepal. Anybody visited Nepal? Very mountainous country. The government of Nepal and the diaspora of Nepalese in Canada, America, Australia, around the world, they came to Athabasca University. They says, we have many citizens live in the mountainous region, no hardwired connection, but we need to give them access to education, information. Can you help us? We talk about Athabasca University, what we do, and they have decided to create the Open University of Nepal and model that university after Athabasca University for the country of Nepal. And they are going to use mobile learning, online learning. because they don't have, and it has to be wireless. So I was asked to help write the strategic plan for that university. And one of the things I'll make sure happens is that the students have mobile so that they can actually access the learning materials. So very major initiative. And I think once Nepal established Open University, I think other countries in Asia and around the world will follow that model. Latin America, many of the indigenous people are underserved, between 50 to 60 million. So there is use of mobile to reach these individuals in remote locations. And what they found that when these students learn using the mobile, they're actually teaching their parents how to use the mobile, how to access information. So major project in Latin America. And in the United States, universities are giving students mobile devices, and there are actually some universities are giving faculty mobile devices to encourage them to design, develop, and deliver on mobile devices. And government of countries are starting to give their citizens wireless mobile devices. So rather than go to wired computer infrastructure, they're moving directly to the mobile devices. I was at an information summit recently, and the Minister of Education for one of the African countries says, can you recommend which mobile device we should buy for the entire country? Because we're not going to go with computers. So I have to talk to a few of the vendors to see if we can make a connection with that country so that they can supply the mobile device. So entire countries are skipping the computer stage and go directly to mobile devices. And it will have major implications on how we deliver education. Just to mention a few of the projects that we are working on at Athabasca University, we converted some of our computer science courses for delivery on mobile devices. And over 500 students took part in this research study. And what we did is we wrote a software so that students can take the learning materials on their regular computer or on the mobile device. So the software will actually detect the device the student is using and will format the information for that specific device. So we are actually starting to build intelligent agents so that the agent will recognize the device, because students can have any devices, and you need to make sure that they can receive the instruction, the materials. And that's what it looks like on the left-hand side, is what the screen looks like on the regular computer, and on the right-hand side is the information on the mobile. And as you can see, it's very readable. And that shows how you can see the graphics on both of the screens. And we found that the students use a variety of mobile devices to access the course materials. They are not limited to one device. And because the system detects the device and then transmit the learning materials, they were able to read and study the materials. And this is a chart that shows that students says the mobile device was a suitable device to access the learning materials. So just over 80% strongly agree. So they say the screen was readable, and they like to receive their instruction materials. And in terms of flexibility, over 60% says it gives some flexibility because they're busy in their lives, which means they can learn anytime, anywhere. We did a project in language training where students in different sectors, and these are adult students who work in the workplace, can take their lessons depending on their discipline using their mobiles. So they get language-specific training depending on the discipline that they are in. And as you can see, it says the technology provides flexibility for them to learn anywhere, anytime. So with adult students, the key is to learn anywhere, anytime. And I would like to take other lessons. Close to 60% agree. So benefits of mobile learning to learners. We all know we have this current and new generation of students, and if we look at some of the characteristics, maybe these students cannot function in our campus-based, face-to-face university, colleges, institutions. We need to look at ways how we can meet their needs. Because they're experts in the field, technology is second nature, and for some of the younger students, privacy is not an issue. They put everything online. They don't care about privacy. So for the new generation, we may have to redefine the word privacy, or we may need to get rid of the word privacy. So we have to design for the new generation, and one way to do that is to get them to use their mobiles. And Becht reported on a study how students prefer to learn. In group, 55%, doing practical things, 39%, with friends, 35%, using computers, 31% alone, and from teachers, only 19%. So they like to learn using the technology with their group, alone, etc. So that's a new generation of students that we have to prepare for. And Gaskell and Mills came up with some of the strategies we should be using for mobile learning. Administration, monitor students, provide learner support, make it more interactive, deliver on the mobile devices, etc. And an important one is reaching the disabled. It's a good way to reach a disabled using online mobile delivery. We have something called a learnable moment. And that has to do with when you're most productive when you learn. So when do teenagers, when are they more active, young adults? Probably in the evenings. And when do we start classes in the day? And some are complaining that they need to learn anywhere, anytime. So if we have our courses online, mobile delivery, they can take their courses anytime, anywhere. So not everyone has learnable moments at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning, or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And we have to provide that flexibility. And John Traxler, one of my colleagues on the International Committee, he says you can use mobile devices to build community, authentic learning, learning in context, so that students can learn in their own environment, which will actually promote high-level learning, and it will make it meaningful for the learner. So because they can relate to the materials, and they can apply it right away. And same with Naismith from the United Kingdom. So things will become more outreach, more distance delivery, and lifelong, and there will be quite a bit of collaborative learning. And then we have the 21st century skills. We have to prepare students to work in the 21st century. And just by getting them to use mobile delivery, online delivery, you're actually preparing them to work in the 21st century. Do research, be able to do things independently, use technology, etc. And I did a study to identify the 21st century skills required by students or the future workers. And those were the categories that I came up with. And under each one of those, there is a list of 21st century skills. So use of the technology to deliver will actually prepare students, will help them develop the skills that they need to function in the 21st century as a worker. The mobile technology. That's young people and older people have multiple devices that they use. And different age group are using mobile devices. So even the babies have their web pages, and maybe in the future they will have a mobile device that will monitor the temperature of the milk, and they can listen to the parents as they feed, etc. And we can't complain about the smallness of the keyboard or the screen because it's going virtual, and you can actually buy some of these and start using them. So the devices will be completely different from what we are seeing it today. Maybe there will be no mobile phones in the future. So we have to design, plan for the unknown. And then Future Lab report, it says by 2020, digital technology will be embedded and distributed in most objects. So you will learn from anywhere. You will learn from the wall, you will learn from your fridge at home, you will learn from your car, etc. So because the device will be embedded everywhere. So maybe the mobile phone and the mobile device will not exist. So you will have a convergence of the internet, your TV, your telephone, etc., and it will just be everywhere, not multiple devices. And input to and feedback from technologies will be more natural by 2020, so it will be human-like. So rather than working with machines, you will get information from other people or from the environment rather than using devices. So in terms of conclusion, let's talk about whether the mobile technology is hype or is it for real? A very big question we have to answer. And here is someone that could give us an answer. So I asked Rory McGreal if his mobile technology is hype or is for real. And actually that picture was taken in the rainforest in Brazil. Rory and I went to a conference in Brazil, and one afternoon we went into the rainforest, and there I caught Rory texting in the rainforest. So you can actually text from anywhere. Or you ask a learner who has a mobile device but no learning materials to access, whether it's hype or for real. We have the learning divide. People have the technology, they don't have the learning materials. So the learning divide is very big, and as educators, we have to make sure we don't have the learning divide anymore. Or ask young learners who have no access to school or libraries, but they have mobile devices. Ask an unemployed young person who has no schools, no libraries, but may have mobile devices. But how can the student access the information, the learning materials? Ask a female who has a mobile technology but cannot attend school. And in Saudi Arabia, there's a big push to do e-learning and mobile learning to reach the females because they have to be in the home environment. They don't go to school. Ask a president who got elected because of the use of mobile technology. On the other side, ask a president who was forced to resign because of mobile social software. Just press the delete button, it's gone. So we see around the world, young people are demonstrating their revolutions because of lack of jobs, because of lack of basic human rights and suppression. And students are revolting because school fees are high and they're not getting the instructions that they require. So would it take a revolution by young learners to transform education to meet their needs? Maybe. Maybe they could be out in the streets. We have to be prepared for the new generation, the younger generation. So with mobile learning, education for all is possible if we do it right. And if we have good leaders and dedicated people like Rory McGreal, who is pushing for open education resources, free materials for people around the world, I think it will happen. A little bit about social justice. The concept of social justice expresses an ideal in which all members of society are treated fairly, have access to their fair share of society goods. And learning materials is an example of society goods. Why not give everyone access? So I think we need to address that as educators, make sure we have social justice, give people access to improve themselves. I mean, we talk a lot about physical starvation. People don't have enough food to eat, so they get weak. It's physical. But there's something called intellectual starvation, where people don't get a chance to learn information, learning material, stimulation to think, to develop their brain. Intellectual starvation. And if you develop people intellect, they will become better people, self-esteem will go up, etc. So I think intellectual starvation is worse than physical starvation. So we need to develop these people intellect so that they can become better people, improve their quality of lives. And for the summit organizers, maybe they'll come up with some research areas that they need to look at so that they can set a research agenda. I came up with some research areas that we need to do more research. And an interesting one is how to design for the unknown. We don't know what the device is going to look like. It's going to be virtual. It's going to be everywhere. Which ties into the second to last item on that list here. Get the learner to generate their own content, their own course materials. But some professors will say, how can you get a learner to generate their own course materials? I would say it will promote higher-level learning. So if you think about an instructor professor who has to teach a new course, the professor has to get the textbook, find learning resources, get the information, organize the course so that he or she can deliver it to the students. Why not get the students to do that? Which will make, as the student develops the course, he or she will actually learn about the course and will promote higher level learning. In one of our courses, our graduate courses, what we get our students to do is as they take the course, they actually develop learning objects for parts of the course, and we use those learning objects to teach subsequent sections of that course in the future. So that we use the student-generated learning objects that future students will use. And if students tend to understand each other better if an expert professor explains something to the student. Because as we all know, experts, when you think of things, you think in terms of compiled knowledge, you use less steps, and sometimes it's very difficult to get it across to the student. So these are very important areas we need to do research in the future. And one important one is interactivity on mobile devices. The theory says that when you design any instruction, you could have up to 8 levels of interaction. And the lowest level is just by using the key and navigating on the screen, whereas the highest level is where you put the student in a virtual environment and where the student will actually experience that environment. So it's a good idea when we design for mobile, we make sure that people, when they design for the different levels of interaction. And also, another interest in how to design information-rich content for mobile delivery using more multimedia. And I had an interesting conversation with a futurist, and one of the things we discussed, we talk about the present generation. They do texting and they don't write too many paragraphs when they send messages. And we were talking, we said, maybe in 40 years, text will be obsolete. Things will be audio, video, more multimedia. And there will be minimum use of text because of the new generation. We're going to be talking to each other, we're going to be sending pictures, etc. And it's really something to think about. And because the young people are using the technology always on, they're wired, their brain pattern is changing, doing less calculation. So the question is, our current learning strategies, model of education, does it fit the younger people whose brain are being rewired because the way they do things with technology? Is there a good fit? Or do we need to design so that it meets the student's need, depending on how the brain is changing? So because students are doing less calculation, the part of the brain that has to do with calculation is not being developed, and maybe future generation will lose that part of the brain. So we have to take a look and see what students are doing so that we can actually plan and deliver for the future generation. And if not, as I mentioned, we may have a revolution. Thank you very much.